our culture where there's a lot of bad stuff happening. Okay, from a physical perspective, health, I mean, just bad. And the way to sell in this market is to get people to a point where you've worked hard your whole life, you've earned this has been your dream, and you deserve it. You got to get people to that place. Because if they're purely looking at, is this the bottom, or interest rates going to go lower, guys, you'll never win that debate. Never. You'll never win that debate. But if we can get somebody to an emotional basis and they go, look, you've worked hard your whole life, this is what you've always dreamt of, wouldn't you like a place where you can be close to your family, close to your friends, you can create memories, you can create a legacy, this is something you can give to your children. When you can get to that level with people, we can close deals today. But unless you get to that deep emotional state with somebody, you will never win on this old square footage, and the logic will not work in this market. It just will never work in this market. So if you've got a logical sales process, it will absolutely not work. Number one, if you don't know who your target buyers are, and there's never one group, one of the big mistakes that I see, next to the whole, everything's based on the architectural renderings and all the logic and stuff, the next thing I see is people go, well, here's our customer. Our customer is this person here. And they create a tagline, they create a logo, they create their brochure around this one customer. The truth is, you have multiple buyer segments. Every real estate project in America, around the world, has they have this kind of buyer, they've got this kind of buyer, they've got this kind of buyer. So let's give some examples. Let's pick on Floridays. So Floridays has an investor segment that they probably will never come here, they'll probably never use it, but they're just investors. Is that true, Lisa? Sure. Okay. So let's call this the investor segment. Now, have they completely disappeared? Yes, in America they have, but they haven't disappeared in Canada or the UK or Ireland or different parts of the world or Asia. So, every project has an investor component. Even in Terry's project, which is a primary project, he's going to sell some very, very expensive home sites. He's going to have some buyers, not a big set, not a lot of them, but there will be a segment they're going to buy pure on investment. Okay? Again, the American investors might have disappeared, but there are other investors around the world and this is a very different profile. When you talk about investors, it's a whole different conversation. It's a totally different vocabulary. It's different messaging. It's a whole different world. And you guys have done very, very, very well at that. Okay? Now, let me tell you something. Even in Floridays, they're probably going to have two different investor profiles. The Canadian investor, which is one profile, and the UK investor is a totally different profile. So if you're trying to market to UK and Canada, let me tell you a couple things. One thinks in square meters. One thinks in square feet. One has their world is in euros, and one's in Canadian dollars. Guys, this is a very different conversation. So if you start putting stuff in square footage in US dollars and they're trying to do the conversion into square meters, into euros, it's confusing for them. There are words that they use in the UK that we don't use here. Okay? They're spelling. They spell words differently in the UK than we spell here in America. So if you're trying to market to an investor in the United Kingdom, you better convert to square meters, you better put it in euros, and you better spell the way they do. And guys, it's not hard. In Microsoft Word, they have it with flags. You can do it like the British do, like Canadians do. I mean, guys, it's really easy to do this. But how many people go to this trouble? Very few. But if you're serious about the UK buyers, if you're serious about Canadian buyers, you better spell it right, and you better put it in their currency, and you better do it in language they understand. Or you're going to alienate those people. The next thing, if you want to get a Canadian, you better partner with the biggest bank they know, and I know Florida's has done it. They partner with RBC. RBC is the biggest bank in Canada. If you're marketing to Canadians and RBC is your partner, here's what's great about RBC. Not only will they approve your Canadian buyer based on their Canadian credit and their Canadian assets, not on the real estate, not on Florida real estate, but based on their Canadian credit and their assets, they will get approval really quickly. And number two, they'll get a better rate. They'll get a better interest rate than the Americans will. Because for the first time, they've seen that the Canadians are zero credit risk. I met yesterday with our friend at RBC. She told me they've had zero delinquencies from Canadians. Now, if you're doing that, then you better have a website that's specific to Canadians with your RBC information and all that. Does that make sense? But each of your projects has multiple different buyer segments. You've got to market them differently. I'm not saying you have to create a different brochure or different ads. I'm saying But a website doesn't cost very much money, easy to update, easy to make changes. I'm not saying that you needed it because you wouldn't have got your financing without it. But what I would do with your feasibility study is I would go and re-research the whole thing. I'd go check out the comps. I bet you half the comps in your feasibility study aren't even in business anymore. I would take a look at that feasibility study and go shop all those comps. See what the true pricing is right now. See what incentives they're doing. See how their sales process. You've got to go and reshop the market right now. If you don't know exactly who your buyers are, you're going to be your head will be shaking a little bit and you're going to get no results. Baby boomers, there's different versions of baby boomers, but 45 to 65 is typically what we're looking for. Financial services, the mutual fund industry, which in 1988, which was not that long ago, was a tiny, tiny little industry, this mutual fund thing. Today it's a multi-trillion-dollar business. The guys that have done better at getting money into mutual funds, just look at the ads of Fidelity, look at the ads of the Charles Schwabs, all those mutual fund companies, and look at the imagery they use, okay? Look at the imagery they use, and look at the words that they use. If you look at the words that they use and the imagery they use, they always have a couple on the beach, or they're always selling at 65, you're going to live like this. If you want to market real estate to investors, use the same words, use the same examples. The next thing. When you look at your website and you look at your pay-per-click ads, make sure that you test it. Don't just use Internet Explorer. How many people use Internet Explorer here? Okay, most of us. There are millions of people that don't use Internet Explorer. They're using things called Firefox or Safari. I go to so many websites that I can't even see because nobody's bothered to test it on different browsers. Guys, this is not an option. You're going to miss out on millions and millions of potential people unless you test everything you do, your emails, your websites, all of your different ads on different browsers.